Hello and welcome to another episode of the Christian Reeve podcast. Today's guest is Gemma Louise. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. As I said to you off camera,
hmm
I'm all over the place, but I don't know. I'm excited. I'm in talking mood, I suppose, and listening. Most importantly, listening mood. that's
Yeah.
that's the key. Podcasts. Got to be a good listener. There's so much I can talk to you about. I think
hmm
I'd like to just start with your art. Walk us through how you got
Yeah.
into art.
It's always something I've kind of gravitated to, basically. Like, I did not have a good experience growing up, so it was like the thing that I gravitated to. And I was more interested in the theatrical side of things. So I was more interested in performance art and pushing the limits originally, which is quite ironic because what I do now is mainly painting. um, but I got really delved in that. And what I loved about performance art was the involvement with it, participation with people, like lots of different things that were involved with it. And as I went through university, I actually had a bad experience at uni. My university experience, we had like modules that we had to do for the first year, and the first module we did was painting, oil painting, because you had to learn the traditional forms of art. And I painted a subject. You had to paint two subject matter in two different styles using oils, and my subject matter was a road sign, which had a lot of meaning to me because I come from a family that are divorced, parents live far away from each other. So when I saw this road sign, I knew I was halfway between the two, seeing the other parent. Um, so painted it, presented it in front of my peers, and I got told by the lead of fine art that I painted that with no love. And
Oh,
yeah.
oh
Yeah.
God, that's brutal.
It ruined me. And like you got to bear in mind, my course, we were the first year ever to do fine art at that university. There was only 12 of us as well, so it's not as if it's like a big group of peers. It's like a small, intimate setting. And I just left, and I felt absolutely destroyed. And then from there, I delved in performance art, and I created video pieces, music pieces. I actually did performance pieces myself, and it was quite like great at the end of that university pathway, because at the third year we had our degree show. I had a room where I had 8 different computers that had videos that I made, and the way I describe them is like collages. So these video collages were depicting this person in my family, and the idea was them to be chattering back and forth like a bit of like gobbledygook, as I like to call it, as it gets blended together. And it was great. And I had like my own room and everything. And everyone else stuck with oil painting after that one session. Um, and because of the way that it was like pushed as that's the true art form. Um, yeah. And the best part of it was I had a queue running out my door. Nobody saw anybody else's stuff. And I got commissions out of it and everything. And that's kind of what started it. And it took a lot of work. I became so drained. I completely stopped making art. And then COVID happened. I got made redundant. I had my mental health took a huge hit, and I was recommended to try and do something again by my partner. So I decided to take up painting, and I created stuff like this. And if it wasn't for that, I don't think I would have got out of the hole that I was in, and I wouldn't have got to where I am now. Painting has been my saving grace, which I thought, looking back, I never thought I would have gravitated toward picking up a paintbrush ever again from that experience. But I've took ownership of it, and I've made it my own, and I've turned it into something different. In terms of where it's took me from then, I've been in exhibitions across the UK and lots of different group exhibitions. I've done quite a lot of community work with it as well. And I'm also doing that in terms of art as a form of therapy. So I've got a foundation degree in art therapy, hopefully going to go on to do my master's to become a fully qualified therapist. But it's something that I used with children, specifically those that have social, emotional, mental health needs, as well as those with SEND needs as well. So quite a big jump from where I started. And yeah, that's, I don't know how else to summarize it really. I think that's a good little overall. Here's where I am.
Cool, we're done. End of the show.
Yeah, done. Bye.
No, let's back it up a bit.
Yeah,
Let's.
go.
I want to kind
There's
of.
your synopsis. Work from it.
Oh, so I'm back at uni now.
I know.
You're torturing me with this. Okay, so you fall out of love with art.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start there because this is something I can relate to too.
Mm-hmm.
I quick synopsis on me. I pursued music for a number of years. I was quite young at the time. Didn't work out. Let people get in my ear, tell me it's a pipe dream, kid. Get a real job. And I was like, yeah, maybe they're right. So I
Yep.
did, and I just stopped doing anything creative. And I'd pick up a guitar, I'd film a video, but I never did it really. And I always kind of felt like there was this big thing missing, which I know is the biggest cliche ever, but
Mm.
honestly, like whenever I saw someone on stage performing, or if I saw someone doing something creative, I just felt this like empty chasm, like a deep sense of why am I not doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Why I missed that? Why am I not doing that? And I'd try and talk myself out of it and be like, oh well, that's not for you. It absolutely fucking was,
Yeah.
but that's life. Point I'm trying to make in my life is that it's like the old saying, like if you're traveling on the road and you steer from the path, life will push you back on that path. So that's why I steered away. Let's explore a little bit about why you steered away and what that looked like.
I'd say why I stood away was because I felt quite alienated. So because everyone around me was doing the traditional forms of art, and I was like, hey, I don't want to pay nearly 9 grand a year on a degree where I'm shoved to do this one thing that actually I don't enjoy doing. I want to make the most of that. And you know what? Let's have a go at everything. I'm paying the money to be here. Why not? Um, and with that, I saw nobody else doing what I was doing, essentially. And I really fell in love with it. It took so much work. The amount of hours I spent video editing, going out physically shooting things, recording, and so on, it physically drained me. But because I was doing that, I was instantly alienated. I was the outsider. I was the odd one, so to speak. And so I basically like removed myself from everyone by choosing that path. And then as time went on, I was like, oh yeah. Now, when I finished uni and I got that, like I got commissioned to do a music video for somebody and so on. And I was like, oh, I'm finally getting on track and finally got this degree. It's actually worth it. And then all of a sudden it stopped. And I was just like, oh, okay. And then I realized, oh, it's actually not quite as easy when you've not got the resources that you once did. And I was trying to figure out other ways to do it. And it just got to the point where I just lost all my fight, essentially, which is quite heartbreaking looking back at it. But yeah, it was just, I just completely lost it. And I just was like, I was like, I need money. I need to sort something out. I can't move back in with my family. No way. Like I got my independence. I need to keep it. And so I actually ended up working for student loans and I was like, I'm giving all these other students that are doing a fine art degree all this money. And I'm like, oh, I remember that time. It just became this self-loathing. And yeah, it wasn't a great time, really, looking back at that point. There was also some other personal things that I was going through as well. I was in a really bad relationship at the time, like really bad. So there was also that to contend with. And then it took for that to break down and for me to really be on my own to go, I need to make a change kind of thing. But yeah, it's a shame because the performance stuff I haven't revisited for a long time. I've been slowly trying to, but it's been quite difficult to navigate how to, again, trying to relearn how to do that again. But yeah, yeah. So, but in terms of how I fell out of love with it, that was it. Because I was the one that was doing stuff that was outside of the normal, and I was trying to push myself and challenge myself and do something different. That alienated me from everybody, and it was quite a lonely experience, which is a shame. It wasn't as supportive as it should have been, in a way.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of explore that for a second. So let's focus on that remark that that lecturer made to you. They
Yeah.
said, you painted this without love. Now, I've heard people that I know who've studied art, family, etc., have very similar experiences. This is part, you know, I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it in art galleries and museums. Just arty farty bunch that are just very up there in arse, and it's
Yeah.
like, just fuck you, but like,
Yeah.
basically. But when it's something like that, you know, it's your livelihood, it's what you're studying, it's your life. It's very different. And of course, anything creative, anything you create, when it's criticized in that manner, you take it personally. And I guess my question to you is like, this person says that to you. What's your response? And also, like, how did they justify that? Because I think that it's one thing to say, oh, I think the way that you know, your technique was off, maybe, or I thought maybe you could have focused more on these themes or whatever the fuck. But like, it was your project. You chose this thing. You chose something that meant something to you. And then they tell you that. Like, what's the justification? What's your response?
I can remember my response at that time was literally I just went quiet and I was just like, okay. And then I sat back down and I just tried to block it all out in that moment. Looking back on it now, I wish I'd said something else. The way that he justified it was basically because of the subject matter. So because I picked a road sign, he said that it basically, oh, it wasn't painted in love. It's such a simple thing, essentially. And was kind of partly basing it, I felt at the time, on technicality of what I demonstrated, which we weren't given that as a criteria to meet. The criteria, we had to do a module on each of these specific things and create a product doing that medium or whatever. So it's quite unfair. Also, art is an opinion-based game. It always has been. And if you paint something that someone just instantly doesn't like, there's no fighting them on it sometimes. And that's the thing with anything that you create. Christ, the amount of things I've heard over the years. And I think that was the harshest lesson I learned. That first comment was get a backbone in a way in this world. Because if you don't, then every time you get any kind of feedback, any negative, or, you know, even if it's, oh, you could have improved it by this, you're going to always take it as a negative. Some bits constructive. Other comments like that, I felt like at the time, not as constructive. There's a difference in feedback.
Do you think though, with something like that, like the trickiness comes more in the if they're a decision maker or not? Because as you said, everyone's going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to have us, you know, what they think. And my response has always just been, okay,
Yeah.
just keep going. You know, take it on board if it's
Yeah.
useful, but keep going. But when they're a decision maker, so in this case, a lecturer, someone who will be in charge of your grades, it makes it a bit trickier. And I would think at the time, being a young student, you know, you're still kind of affected by that whole, oh, well, they're older than me. They have more experience than me. I guess they know better. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, just because I said this doesn't make me right.
Yeah. And that definitely fed into my whole university career, really. They actually hired another lecturer to teach that course along
Mm.
with them in the second year because there was only one opinion, essentially. And it was very obvious that it was in favor of what he favored, kind of thing, as well, due to what everybody else was creating, which was mainly oil paintings, believe it or not. Yeah, that was his speciality. Whereas when I decided to do my first project in first year, And I was like, right, I'm going all in performance and video art. I'm doing all this. And he was like, oh, I've kind of got no idea how to help you with that. And I'm like, okay, well, you've got to learn. You've got to embrace it. Like, you know, fine art isn't just one thing, it's everything, technically. And yeah, it affected quite a lot of the marks I got. I can remember there was even a photography module that we did, and we had to make like a photo book. And I lived in so my university was in Hartlepool in the northeast. So I did pictures of the coastline along the headland, and I like made them all grained, and I used like sand elements and stuff like that in it. And I presented it to him in one way, and I did it in a little matchbox kind of thing. That was how I presented
Cool.
it. He said, he gave me feedback which was, oh, I think you could take this and like make it a bit more refined in terms of how you present the photos. So rather than making it more about like the aesthetic feel of it kind of thing, what about if you make it like actual like cards in there rather than like these kind of rough textured things? I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll do that. And he wrote this down on a feedback form and everything. So I presented it that to him again with the feedback, just give it a go, to go, look, I am trying. You know, I'll give anything a go. To then he marked me down because I changed it to what he said, and I should have
What?
kept it how it was. Oh, don't. Fine art degrees are it's just politics. It genuinely is politics with these degrees. It depend. My experience is obviously a lot different to probably other people across the UK that have studied fine art, but that was my experience. So there's like little nuggets here and there. And it's a popularity thing as well, I feel like which it shouldn't be. Christ, you're paying all this money. And in the end, the second tutor actually came along. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have stayed on that degree, because he actually listened to me and actually tried to understand what I was doing, and was like, okay, I like that idea, I like that theme, but what about if you try and incorporate this? I was like, right, that's constructive feedback. Yes, give me that, please.
I've always just
But
thought as well, like art as a subject is so hard to grade and teach because
yeah,
it's like like every artist has their own style, right? So,
mm-hmm.
you know, if you couldn't give two shits about oil painting, but you love acrylics, just for argument's sake,
Yeah,
then you know it's like being forced to eat with your left hand, but you're right-handed. It's like,
essentially.
yeah, I can do it. It probably won't be very good, but I'll give it my best effort. But
Yeah,
can I just eat with my right hand? I mean, I'm better at that, you know.
yeah,
I just
exactly.
I don't
And
get that. What is that?
it's more to expand your experience, is basically the main thing about it. Like expand your experience as much as you can, and so then you've got like an archive to kind of go back to. But at the same time,
But you're
it
never going to go
causes,
back to it though,
no,
because you
exactly
don't do.
not. You're not going to go back to it, and that's what I don't understand about some of these degrees that are out there for fine art at all. Like, having gone through that myself, I mean, my year, it was probably the outlier out of all of the first years you could have, because it was the first time that course was ever run at that university. But the university I went to, it's now changed. So the name of it is now the Northern School of Art. Or it's an art university. That's all they do, art courses. So they have like,
Wow.
you know, set design, costume design, photography, all sorts of stuff. It's specifically an art and design university. So, you know, that really shouldn't have been an outlier, really, even though it was the first year it was run, because they used to have a fine art course. But I think they got rid of it, and because of similar reasons, because it's so opinionated, and they became so opinionated that it actually affected some of the grades that people got, whether it was right or wrong, that kind of thing. It's all opinion based. It's one of those things. The only main bit of a fine art degree that's actually looked at and I would say graded fairly are stuff to do with the writing element of it. It's where you're writing critically and contextually. So that's your dissertation and things like that. Those are like the main bits. And to be fair, mine was not an easy dissertation. I chose like one of the hardest subjects. Mine was on how female artists use performance art as a tool to empower feminism. So I talked a lot about the 1960s and 70s and the rise of female artists. So mine was very hefty. But there's lots of things you could talk about in those dissertations. There was one person that wrote about shoes in paintings.
Cool.
Yeah, lots of random things that people wrote. It was great. But that was like the main thing, like really. I'd say that's like that definitely can't wither kind of thing on opinion, so to speak. You're writing about factuals and facts, and obviously you can have opinions that flow into that. But yeah,
I,
art degrees, opinionated.
I just can't get my head around this thing of like,
No.
okay, here's this thing I made, and then someone goes, okay, if you would just change this, and this, it would
Yeah.
be right.
Yeah. And then it reflect
But,
badly on you. Yeah.
but like, okay, let's say you get back like, I don't know, oh, here's an F, you failed.
Yeah.
But like, it's not wrong. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, if it's
Yeah.
maths, it's pretty clear cut.
Yeah.
You've got the wrong
Exactly.
answer, yeah. But with art, it's like, well, like you said, it's your opinion. So your opinion's worth more than mine.
Yeah. Exactly. It does get you down. Like it is
Well, so,
demoralizing.
but it's like by that logic, any famous painter would just be like would have failed. Like if I don't know, Van Gogh was taking that course, or Picasso, or
Yeah.
whoever, they would have failed.
Yeah. Like
You know, I
yeah, like Van Gogh, he's my favorite artist. I actually have his quote tattooed on my arm.
was gonna say I
Um,
can notice that in your paintings.
yeah,
Very
it's a big,
much
yeah.
awesome.
So the quote that I have is "What is done in love is done well," and I feel like that summarizes any creative art form because if you've done it well, if you've done it in love, like then to you it's done well. Like you've done something good there. If you're just making it for the hell of it and not really bothered about the output, the output's not going to be great in my opinion. And I've seen that in the past with stuff I've created, and I've gone, you know what, I just need to quickly get this done. And I look at it and go, actually, that was a bit rubbish and a waste of time.
I always think that
It's
as
one of
well.
the,
Like anything you do, it's like, do you want it done quickly or do you want it done well?
yeah,
Done correctly.
exactly. And
Yeah.
with Van Gogh, like during his time, he wasn't appreciated as an artist.
No.
Everybody thought his paintings were absolutely rubbish. And yet now what? He's famous everywhere, like after death. It's one of those things, isn't it? Oh, I'll be famous when I die, is what I say to myself. Like once I pass,
It's the
maybe.
saddest life ever. You hear about it. Like he was selling like some of his classic priceless works of art for like nothing so that he could afford booze and just food.
Yeah, exactly. And yet now he's got like he's got stuff everywhere. I mean, he had like there was like an exhibition in London recently that I went to. That was the Poets and Lovers one, where his paintings were celebrated there. All sorts of stuff. I mean, I've been to the one in Amsterdam as well, his museum there, and that's absolutely amazing. But yeah, as I say, it's such a difficult profession, just art in general. Like you're always it's one of these things that I always say to myself, you are always like putting all this stuff out there and so on. So my thought is I'm putting colour into the world. If I can put colour into the world, I'm happy. Yeah. But whether people see that, I don't know. I try my best to. I'll do whatever opportunity I'm able to and mentally able to. But whether it's like a needle in a haystack, like whether I'll get picked as like, oh yeah, that's amazing, and then it could take off or whatever. You never, it's probably 9 times out of 10, probably not. But you know
I'd
what?
buy
I
one.
don't do it.
I like it.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I do it for me. That's what I had to learn. Don't do it for somebody else.
Mm.
Do it for yourself. If you're not doing it for yourself, you're in it for the wrong reasons.
I gotta ask you, man. I
Go,
have to
go,
ask.
go.
What did you make of art in high school?
So
Because I can tell
I
you at my art in school, it's fucking shit.
so I was an absolute nerd, genuinely. So I was the one I got bullied a lot, didn't really have a lot of friends, and I used to hide out in the art classroom all the time on my breaks and lunches. So there were some bits I absolutely hated. Still lifes, I get why they get you to do it because it's refining on drawing skills and so on, but I do not need to draw the same piece of still life for 10 lessons. Why do I need to do that? And I get some of it, but also at the same time, I felt like it was very, here's something that this person did. Right, can you copy what they made and do it in your sketchbook? And then write a bit of what you learned about this that you've searched on Wikipedia. That was basically what it was. artist research. And I understand educating yourself and everything like that, but it was very cut and paste. There wasn't much room to explore out unless you took it at GCSE. Once you took it at GCSE, then you got more freedom a little bit with what you did. And that was, I feel like once I took it at GCSE, I enjoyed it a lot more. From year 7 to year 9, I was like, nah, it's nice, enjoy it. It's a chill lesson and everything. And yeah, I make stuff at home, so I know I want to do this as a GCSE, which I did. But during that time, it was just very cookie cutter, very copy and paste. Not much to it at all. Don't know if you had a similar experience.
Oh yeah, it was fucking boring and pointless. I mean, there were some cool projects. I remember making a CD case. I discovered that I have artistic ability. Like I can do it. I can draw. I can do all that. I'm not like amazing at it, but if I properly worked at it, I could do it. I like to doodle. I like to. What I've understood is with creativity, and like if you're an arty person, then you can do anything. But there'll be like particular things you're more suited to. So like if you told me go write 5 songs, I could do that like that. But if you told me make 5 drawings, it might take me a bit longer.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's interesting. When I was at school, I didn't do it at GCSE because the school impression, it gave me a bad impression. Plus I'd heard about GCSE. Like for example, I remember they had like a 2-3 hour exam, and it was just painting something for like 2
only
3
2
hours.
or 3 hours. Mine was 2 days.
2 days?
Yeah.
Actually, I think that sounds right. I think maybe maybe 6 hours. So I don't know. It sounded brutal. It sounded insane. I'd never heard anything like it. That sounds more like it. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 days.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
29, turn 30 soon.
Right. So same school age, roughly. Well, like a year apart. Year or two. So don't worry, you'll love your 30s. It's great. It's good.
Oh God.
I mean, can it get any worse than your 20s? I don't think so.
Don't think so.
I don't know. I like it so far. The only thing I don't like is that I'm aging quickly, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, that's the bit I'm realizing in my head. So I'm like, Anyway.
Yeah. So the GCSE was not that interesting. Like it was definitely they taught you a hell of a lot more from what I understood. Whereas I don't know, at school level it was very, I don't know if you had the same syllabus, but we learned about Henri Matisse and acrylic arts, which was all right. Bit of Picasso, bit of Van Gogh. I can never say his name. Van Gogh?
Either.
That guy.
Yeah, that one.
That guy. And a few others. And yeah, it was fine. I think it was just a bit too slow paced. I think that maybe that was the issue. Like, and our teacher was like a zombie. He was just very strange, man. Today was creepy as well, which is
we had newly qualified teachers, so they were like all full of life. It was great. So, we had 2 young art teachers that were pretty much best friends with each other, and one of them was Irish, and her birthday was on St. Patrick's Day, and she used to go all out, putting streamers and everything across everywhere, and really make it a big, great time. She was fantastic. But yeah, it was very pretty much similar syllabus, I think. But when GCSE came along, we got more freedom in what we do. We had to still do the artist research and so on and everything like that. But so for my GCSE, I was inspired by the artist Slinkerchew. If you haven't seen his work, search it up. It's great. Basically, he makes like little people, like literally teeny tiny, and he puts them in like real life settings. Like he makes like little mini dioramas and so on. They're quite comical. And I decided I wanted to do something like that, but at school. So for my 2-day exam, I was allowed to roam around school premises while everybody else was in lessons with somebody with me, taking pictures of all these little figures that I made and putting them. So like I had one in the swimming pool, had one like sliding down stairs on a skateboard, all sorts of different wacky scenarios. And I got graded for that and did quite well. I was like, yeah, why not? Had a load of fun. And yeah, I think that was like my probably first positive experience. And I was like, oh, I'll do this at A level. And A level was interesting. Another comment. I'll give you another comment. I was told that if I couldn't afford a sketchbook, I couldn't do art. That was one I got told when I went to college. Because you had to buy a sketchbook because you had to evidence your work. I couldn't buy one on the time because I hadn't had enough money. I got told, right, well, if I can't afford it, I can't do art. And I was like, oh, all right then, if that's the game you're going to play.
Why are they all assholes?
I don't know.
Why are they all fucking assholes, man?
Yeah, that was the one. And they seem to be from the same generation of people as well, in a way. And you know what, I get that. But yeah, I got told that when I progressed to college and took it at A level. Unfortunately, I had a bad time in A level. I had to drop out quite a few courses and so on because I got in a pretty serious car accident and so on. So it delayed my whole college journey by a whole year. I was pretty upset about it. I had to give up drama and psychology. But when I got to foundation degree, foundation was probably the best experience I've ever had teaching wise, because it's literally, yeah, we'll show you different things, different elements, teach you these things and so on. So I had to learn how to actually edit, like using Photoshop for the first time. I actually had to like learn how to sew a dress, random things that I've never thought I would do. But then they were like, all right, so you've been given all the tools and the skills. What are you going to do? Off you go. And I was like, great, fantastic. I can do what I want. It was brilliant. And, you know, I think if it was more open-ended like that, actually teaching you like all these different skills that would be beneficial for you to have, and then allowing you to explore those newly found skills that you've developed, I think it would be probably more in favour of a lot more people. Like I think back to my GCSE exams, like GCSE stuff, like I did art, but I also did graphic design. And when you said you were making a CD, I was like, yeah, did that in graphic design. Everyone literally took graphic design because they were told it's the easiest GCSE you can do. Like,
that's what everyone at my school did fucking media studies and regretted it because it was A, fucking boring, and B, all you did was watch movies all day long.
Yeah,
which sounds great, but then like you would watch it like to the point where you hate the movie and over analyze it. Like if you thought overanalyzing of Mice and Men was bad, wait till you get to the movies.
But yeah, it's just, I feel like it could be done a lot differently. I understand why they do it the way they do it, but yeah, it's just.
Let's talk more about your art for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You describe it as being abstract.
Yeah.
What does this mean?
Basically, just whatever I interpret that to be in my own sense these days. Sometimes it can have an actual form in it. Sometimes it can just have no form at all and just be an exploration of colour. So the thing that I like is fluidity. I like exploring the flows of things and just letting it naturally go. I don't normally pre-plan what I'm painting. I just kind of go and see what happens and just allow the movement of my body to take over and just like get caught in that. So some of it's like very chaotic. Some of it's very fluid and nice and very and everything. But when I first started, I used to paint these in moments where I was like I was trying to navigate certain thoughts and feelings and so on. It is my therapy. I've said that since day one. And I can tell when I first started how much of a toll my mental health had taken compared to as years progressed and things had changed and certain life events occurred. And it's interesting seeing that. I didn't realize how much I was using such dark colors before until I look back and I go, oh my God, I was going through it. But I also write as well. So I write poetry that go along with them. I don't necessarily write them at the same time. Sometimes I do. as a way of like processing why I'm doing what I'm doing. So like I'll write certain things down and then it will just kind of mishmash together. But I don't, although they've got titles, I don't necessarily assign them to anything either. Like it's up to people's interpretation of it. If they just come to enjoy it for the sake of colour, that's fine. They don't like it, they don't like it. It's just one of those things where I just want to put what I can, put more colour, and just see what I come up with. Like lately, my stuff that I've been doing very recently, because I've been going through a lot of stuff medically, it's been really focused on that. And it's been quite a good coping mechanism for me and quite a good tool for me to use to explore all the shitty things I'm going through. But at the same time, it's a healing process. So although, yes, I'm trying to get my art out there, it's mainly for myself. And if people get something out of that, then that's good, I feel. But with the abstract thing, there's lots of different interpretations of it. Like for me, it's just I blend lots of different colors and see what I can make out of it. Other people, it may be just complete like painting something that doesn't look like anything. Others can be distorting the perception of something else. Like there's different ways that you can use the term abstract. So you can explore with it so much. So I don't feel limited by it, which is great.
What does it feel like when you paint?
Literally, I just zone out. Like I forget about everything. Like
What's
I'm
the
in my own
longest you've
trance.
zoned out?
Oh, like a good 12 hours. Like
12 hours?
Yeah, genuinely. I struggle with insomnia. I have bouts of it. So when I've been in that state before, when I'm like I'm not sleeping, I'll be up and I'll be creating. So I'll have like a whole day where I'm just like doing nothing else but just like sat in here. So
Wow.
yeah, it's amazing what kind of trip it can take you on.
I was gonna say, yeah, after a while,
Yeah.
don't you like kind of start to like see shit, or I don't know.
No, I haven't seen any of that. Not yet.
That's good. That's good.
Still time. But yeah, abstract, it's just basically a way of no limits. That's how I see it.
Do you ever listen to music when you paint?
Yeah, I listen to a bit of everything, to be honest. Like sometimes it does influence it, sometimes it doesn't. I guess it depends how in tune I am with it. Sometimes, like I've seen some people like they do these paintings where they're like listening to music and they like paint at the same time or whatever, and trying to go along with it. And I find that interesting. I do think there's definitely a relation there, though, like very easily.
When you say that, like, would you mean like paint to the beat?
Yeah, kind of thing, like paint to the beat, or like
crazy.
just
What
like
if
the
it's drum and
ambience
bass?
of it. Just
Brilliant.
like just throw paint on the canvas. Why not?
What do you
So-
what do you make of art like that, where it's literally just someone like chucking shit at a wall?
So Jackson Pollock, he's probably the most famous example of that. I think his was very like some of it is pre-planned how he's going to do it and so on. And to be fair, when done like I feel like in his style, when it's done like that, it's done really beautifully. But I don't like people that waste, people that just do it for the hell of it and just go, oh, that's going to get a lot or whatever. And I'm like, you can tell when there's forethought into it and when there isn't forethought into it when people do stuff like that. Like I've seen some bizarre art over the years, and there's obviously stuff that people just put in museums and they're like, how is that art? And that's a big subject in itself. Like,
Yep.
like, and to be honest, technically, yeah, anything can be art if you can justify it in a way. Like, and it's true.
I think I disagree.
There's some things that I go, really?
It's
like,
an idea. It's not art. It's artistic. It's not art. Like the fucking banana on the wall, the toilet.
Yeah.
It's like I
Go on. Go.
the sadistic side of me is like, haha, that's funny. But then the other side is like, it's not art though. Art is a thing that someone's created. That's a statement. That's a political statement. That's a comment on society. And don't get me wrong, like I love exhibitions. I grew up going to art exhibitions, galleries.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. When you see an installation, when you see an exhibition, when you see paintings, it makes you feel a certain way. And you think about so many things like,
Hmm.
who is the artist? Why did they paint this? What mindset were they in? Where were they
Yeah.
living? Da, 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 da. Like, just
Yeah.
all so many questions. If it's a banana on a wall and it sells for like 30K, it's a
Yeah.
fucking banana
Yeah.
on a wall. It's not art. I don't care. Shoot me. It's not art.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. Things like that really frustrate me, especially when you look at something that, say, someone spent 200 plus hours on something.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that guy
And
just
then,
taped that to the wall. But here's the thing though, it's the people that come and see it are just as bad. Like
yeah.
I saw this guy do a funny little experiment, and of course it fucking worked, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
he took his shoes off and he just put them in the corner.
Oh, I've seen this.
Yeah, and
I've seen this.
people
Yeah.
started walking past and started taking pictures, and then eventually he took the shoes and put them on and walked away, and people looked at him when he did that,
Yeah.
and it's like
That's
you fucking
ridiculous.
idiots, like ah.
Yeah.
But
It's
I can see why they think that way because anything can be art. So who knows?
Yeah, exactly. But that's where it frustrates me when I've seen people spend so much time working on something, they've put all this effort into it, and yet something like that generates a lot more revenue, views, etc. And it's just like, it's so frustrating, so frustrating. And you get that in social media world a lot these days. Like, honestly, it's just one of those things. That's a whole thing in itself. It's a whole different world out there.
Would you
Like,
make of that Banksy one from a few years back where it was what was it? It was a some
was it
sort
the
of
balloon girl in the frame with the shredder? Or
yeah that one.
yeah, I thought that was quite clever in a way because
Yeah.
he knows that people actively try to steal his work or sell it on whatever and so on, and his things have always been to make that statement kind of thing. And as soon as it started gaining popularity, people actually started trying to steal his shit and everything like that. I'm not surprised he went to such lengths just basically flip them off once it sold. Like, it was poetic justice. I thought.
Who is Banksy?
Oh, I don't know. Like,
Is it Neil Buchanan?
I've seen that. Maybe. Who
Maybe.
knows?
It could be.
Um,
He's very
I think,
talented.
yeah, I think it might be. I think with the size of them and the outreach they have, I think it's a group of people. I don't think it's one person. I
Yeah, I
think
agree.
logistically, um, like the Banksy that I grew up with. So I lived in the Northeast for a while, and the Banksy that was near me was the two policemen kissing each other. That
Mm.
was he put that right pretty much around the corner from Newcastle Police Station, and I thought that was brilliant. And it's still there, and that's probably one of the most protected ones, to be fair, because the amount of them that have been like defaced or they've tried to like steal it and things like that, absolutely ridiculous.
How has no one ever seen Banksy or whoever they or he or she or they is? Like, how have they never discovered this?
I don't know. I think it's a cover up somehow or something. There must be something. Like, honestly, like, logistically, it doesn't make sense. That, like, the amount of pieces of artwork that are out there, and you think to yourself, but there's surely one time. It's only one. It's the one time, but it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't make sense. There's lots of people out there that make different things like that, and they're still not discovered or unknown. And like, some of them, it's like they've done it purposefully. And I feel like with Banksy now, it's become such a thing that I feel like if he was to reveal his identity, that would it. He would all of his stuff would kind of like go down, like, mainstream wise or whatever, in a way, because the hype has been built up so high with like his anonymity. Ugh, big word. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's interesting, the art world. It's interesting how, like, what people determine what is art and what isn't art. Everyone has an opinion. There's a theory called the death of the author. Basically,
The
the
death
person
of
that
the author.
yeah, death of the author. Yeah. So it was. I can't remember what photography series that this theory was first implemented off, but there was some photographer. It was something I learned ages ago in art college, but I can't remember it now. But basically, the idea is that, so you, as the creator of the art thing, so say I paint that painting, and then I put it on a wall in a gallery. as soon as someone lays eyes on that painting, that's it. I'm dead as the author. Whatever they've put as their interpretation, as their opinion, that's what is to them. So that's
Mm.
kind. So there's that thing out there as well. Like there's some different like theories. There's also like different ways of looking and seeing work and so on. Lots of different ways that it's interpreted. But I feel like that's probably the most true deaf concept is as you as the artist, you can say what your meaning behind the artwork is and so on. But as soon as someone takes that look at it, they're not going to take what your meaning is. They're going to take what their opinion is and what their meaning of it is.
I've seen this with things like
Yes.
music, and
Yeah.
then you get like the author say what it's really about, and people argue with the author and say, "No, you're wrong."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
actually, it's this, and it's like, I fucking made it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like, and that's probably the most probably one. It's applied in all things. I feel like that one though. But there's lots of different things out there. I've seen like lots of debates lately about whether art should be destroyed in some cases as well. So
What, for sustainability reasons, or
no, more due to who created it, basically, or what
oh,
it represents. If I mean, I can't stand the man myself, but Jimmy Carr, he hosted a Channel 4 concept about this, where it was whether art should be destroyed or not. It should be on there that you'll be able to watch. And they brought in an actual live audience, and they had two pieces of artwork, and they would have and they would have a person debating for each artwork why it shouldn't be destroyed and why the other should. And it had such things like, so for example, Rolf Harris, he was a painter. His paintings are still out there. Pablo Picasso can be quite controversial as well in terms of his relationship with women. You also have, like, for example, I actually spoke about this artist in a podcast that I recorded with Joe. That will be coming up. Marcus Harvey, he did a painting of the infamous mugshot of Myra Hindley, who was responsible for the Moors murders. That was made out of children's handprints and stuff like that.
wow, okay,
Yeah, things like that. It was when is it too much, and when do you say actually that shouldn't exist anymore, and things like that. There's lots of different subject matters that you can talk about this. Like, it's very interesting. I'm gonna just blow your mind. Honestly, this is my bread and butter.
already have, yeah, love it, love it, love it.
Like to me, if I was to say, I don't think art should be destroyed necessarily.
I agree.
feel like it's important to have those as reminders, especially because if we get rid of those reminders, future generations potentially repeat. I mean, the most probably controversial one, Adolf Hitler. He was a painter,
Yeah.
so they actually had one of his paintings there on this documentary. Spoiler alert, did get destroyed.
Oh wow.
But
Okay.
yeah, so they had the actual thing, and these were all actual pieces, and one of them actually got destroyed, or one of them survived.
Is it the one with the bike in it, and it's like a
I
stairwell or something?
I can't remember,
I think I've seen that one.
but basically, obviously, the audience voted to destroy it. But the argument that the person had that was debating for it, which I agree with, is if we destroy things like that, it makes us forget that it was an actual human being that caused such atrocities to happen. Like, we need to remember that we as humans, unfortunately, could be capable of such things like that. And if we don't keep those reminders, we'll forget. And we're essentially cleansing history in a way.
I think as well, it's important when you take a person like that it's important to remember like the duality of man, and how, on one hand, this person was capable of such atrocities and such evil, and on the other hand, the guy was painted some beautiful paintings. He had a dog.
Yeah.
He had a wife. Like all of these things, and it's weird when you think about it, because it's like
Yeah.
there's a humane side in an evil person. What does that say about humans? And to destroy artwork like that is to destroy that ideology and mindset as well, which I think is very important to understand, that we're not so black and white. It's not. There's so much more we need to understand about the human soul,
Yeah.
and yeah, to not destroy history. You know,
Hmm.
like for
Yeah.
instance, like we should always talk about the slave industry in the years to come, um, or like if you take this is a hot button topic, but like when they say, oh, you shouldn't promote certain TV shows from the past because
Yeah.
now they're inappropriate, and it's like, well, if you take like Only Fools and Horses as an example,
Hmm.
there's terminology in there that by today's standards is considered offensive, but then wasn't necessarily offensive. Some of it
Yeah.
was, but other words were like they either like tongue in cheek and humor was different, or they just weren't offensive words, and now
Yeah.
they are, and that's because of history and time and how words are used. And yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
a lot of arguments as well for even that, like whether it's the word or the intention that really matters, and
Yeah.
you could go on all day about this, but like
Yeah.
to just delete it, I don't think
Hmm.
it's wrong. Like I like how a good example is like Channel 4.
Hmm.
If you go back and watch Peep Show in like
Yeah.
season, you know where I'm going with this, in like season 2, Jeremy wears blackface,
Hmm.
and is blackface wrong? Of course,
Yeah.
but like and it's clever because like with Channel 4 they put a warning, but they don't delete it. They still promote the show. They just say, hey,
Yeah.
just a reminder, in this episode there was instances of blackface, times have changed, people have changed, etc. Right?
Hmm.
Perfect. So you give kind of like a warning for people, and you explain the context. And then also, if people actually bother to watch that episode, it's the storyline is him and this woman are exploring sexual taboos, and one of them is
Hmm.
that, and even his character is like, it's kind of racist.
This is, yeah, it's messed
Yeah.
up.
But then you look at other shows like say like Little Britain as an example,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
like a lot of people argue like it's kind of funny. They're like, it was bad then, it's bad now, and I'm like,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
don't know, like that humor is different. Like that show was huge. That was like the biggest
Yeah.
British
It was
comedy
so
show.
popular, and they even had like a thing going off from that was in an airport. Was there an airport one or
Come
something?
Fly With Me.
That was it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Like,
and I remember watching that and loving it, and then years later going like, wow, yeah, nah, that's like really offensive.
yeah.
But I guess I don't know, like it in a way it didn't seem like it at the time.
Hmm.
Like everyone I knew wasn't offended by it. I feel like society has changed a lot. I think but like it's cyclical as
Yeah.
well.
I
You
think
know,
it's that, and it's like education as well. Like, that's like it changed, rightly so. As
I saw someone
like,
put this out the other day that like they reckon cancel culture has died, and I know what they mean. Like it's like
mm,
it was a phase. It's now ended, and the example that they gave is like say Marilyn Manson's still touring, and
yeah,
it's like yeah, nah, like that person was accused of atrocities, which they were legally proven, but it's pretty
yeah.
damning.
I can think of
And
several YouTubers like that come to
yeah,
mind. Like that,
yeah.
like that Logan Paul or whatever his name is.
Well, the interesting thing about Logan Paul, right, is that okay, he did this horrible, terrible thing,
Yeah, we
and
did
then
quite a lot.
yeah, he did this horrible, terrible thing, right,
Yeah,
and then like a few days later, he did another horrible, awful thing.
terrible thing, and it just kept going and going, and
Yeah, and then there was the laughable apology, the meme thing, and
yeah,
then look, I believe in second chances,
hmm,
but I gotta be honest, this was one where I feel like a fool. I think a lot of us do. Like,
yeah,
I thought he'd grown up. I thought by the time
hmm,
he became a wrestler, like I'm a big wrestling fan, so I was like, okay, the guy's got training, athletics training. When he was boxing, I was impressed with that. Like, he seemed like he was turning over a new leaf and growing up finally after all these
yeah,
years. And then all these crypto scams,
hmm,
scamming your audience, not once, but twice,
yeah,
and then being caught and called out for it, and then just not really taking any responsibility at all. and just kind of
Hmm.
laughing it all off, and then all your friends are doing the same thing. It's like, oh, okay, he's just an asshole. He always has been, always will
Hmm.
be. And I don't. I remember once in an interview, he said that he sees the acquisition of money as a game, and he like he just enjoys just earning as much as possible, and it's a contest to him. He just wants as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I just like I like the fact that he is at least honest about that, but I also look at
Yeah.
it like if that's all you care about, it's going to be a very hollow existence, like
Hmm.
seemingly forever.
Yeah.
And like he's one of these people that lives their life as an advertisement. So like in anything you ever look at, he'll have a bottle of Prime somewhere in the
Yeah.
background, wearing it, whatever. And I'm all for advertising, but it's just a lot, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's do
It's
better.
very interesting. I think like the cancel culture thing has died down. I'll
Mm,
say in quotation marks. There's still uproars and so on of it. But I think what people have learned is that people can then take actual accountability and they can actually grow and change. Like there are some people, Christ, I can put my hand on heart and say, if I look past on some of the things that I did in my teens, for
yeah.
example, like if someone found that or whatever like that, I've got right to be called out on it. And you know what? Now that I've grown, I'm older.
Well,
I've
this
learned from those things. I can take accountability for that, and I can tell you the person that I was, however many years ago, is not the same person that I am now. And I think that's something that people have learned slowly over time with
Well,
that.
you can't hold shit from the past against someone unless it's
Yeah.
like the unforgivable sins,
Hmm.
like where you've destroyed lives forever. Like that I can
Yeah.
understand. But if it's just like, you know, you fucked up, you had the wrong attitudes, you like I think a big problem with this is people often forget that like you were a kid at the time
Yep.
or like learning or just an idiot. Like
Hmm.
I hear old wrestlers sometimes talking about being in their 20s and 30s and they refer to themselves as kids then. And I'm like, I get it. I get why they say that because
Yeah.
there's this assumption that by this age you're supposed to have all your shit figured out. And it's like,
You
you really
don't.
don't. No. Like, you just, you know more than you did. But
Yeah.
I
I'd
mean,
like to know
it's,
what that's like one day, but
what do you want to be when you grow up?
I don't know.
Madness.
But oh dear.
Let's talk about your return to art.
Hmm.
So it's
Oh,
COVID, it's the
yeah.
pandemic.
So I was working for a franchise university at the time. I was a student engagement officer. So I was the person that
Ooh.
chased you up on your attendance. I was there if
Oh,
you had,
arsehole. Thanks for
yeah, it's all right.
that.
I was the person that chased you up on your attendance, but I was also there if you had like any welfare needs. Like I was literally your one point person to go to. I was the only person that you could go to at that university because it was
Oh,
such a
wow.
small university that I was at. Um, got hired there in January of 2020. And then COVID hit, started working from home. As my probation came to an end, I literally finished the last day of my probation. I was like, great. They emailed me at 7 p.m. saying I didn't have a job anymore and I was made redundant. And I was like, crap, what do I do? Oh, there's some sketchy things with that university, don't get me wrong. But it was a bit of a, okay, what do I do? During this time, I had moved away from my family. So I moved in with my partner, so I moved to Manchester.
Hey.
So we
I didn't know
just
you live in
live.
Manchester.
Yeah, so I used to live literally on the outskirts of Salford. So Blackfriars pub, you have,
Ah,
yeah, so
yeah.
Blackfriars, you've got the bridge where you've got the car dealership and that. Just walk down
Yeah.
that road and I was literally there.
Oh, mad. I
But
lived like 10 minutes from there, I think, at one point.
yeah, but so I moved in with my partner. He works for Booking.com. So he used to work in, I can't remember what
You
street
still
it
live in
is.
Manchester.
No, moved
Ah.
away. So
Ooh.
sorry. I visit
Ooh.
Manchester a lot though. But anyway, so I moved in with my partner. We were long distance at first because I was in Darlington, so all the way the northeast of England, where all the Geordies are. He was in Manchester. We met online. Our story is we met online through eHarmony. Met up
Oh,
with each other
wow.
for the Met up with each other for the first time in Manchester. I came down to see him. Like, I made sure I was like, you are who you say you are, aren't you? I was like, can we do a video call the night before and things like that. Met him. We had a lovely day in Manchester, and then I couldn't get home because all the trains were cancelled that weekend. Because that was the weekend we had there was like a like heat wave, so the train tracks were warped or something,
Oh man.
and it happened that weekend. So I couldn't get home. So he was like, "Oh well, I've got a spare room, so you can stay there if you like." I was like, "I really hate that I'm putting you in this rubbish position. This is not the impression I wanted to make." But you know what? It worked. Still together. So that was like what, 5 years later, nearly six
So,
years
so you
now.
stayed over and then you just never left.
Yeah, pretty much. We moved. Yeah, stayed
Like, she's
over.
been here for 5 years. She won't leave.
Yeah, pretty much.
Only had the
No,
one date.
yeah. Stayed there for a weekend, finally got home. He came to visit me a week later. He got cold feet and I thought, oh, he's going to
Oh,
ghost me. But then he then hugged me out nowhere. He was like, I'm fine now. I was like, thank God. Like, I panicked. But anyway, so 3 months after that, I moved in with him into 2019 and got settled in. He was supporting me at first until I found a job, got that job at the uni. COVID then happened, so we were literally straight into it. So, you
jeez.
know, yeah, you can imagine, can't you?
A lot, man. I
Yeah,
remember just to interject for one
go
second. I
on.
remember hearing about like in the beginning, like a lot of people going like, "Oh, make sure you choose well because you'll be locked down with those people." People in relationships like breaking up, and they were like talking about as soon as I get out, I want to switch with different households, all this crazy shit.
No,
Oh
we
my
beat the
God.
odds, thankfully. Because we get married this year, so get
Oh,
married in June.
congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, so got the job, was working hard and everything, really enjoyed it, got made redundant. So this was in that weird time where you could see people, but you still had to keep your distance in that weird summer period where we were like, yeah, let's open all the pubs. Why not? Let's do. And then
Yeah, that was
and then that
bullshit.
caused the second huge wave of lockdown from end of August. So I was just sat there and I was like, I've got no friends around me. I've got no family around me. I'm with my partner that I've been with for just over a year now. I've got no job. I've got nothing. And I was just dead. I was just dead to the world. I really struggled. My depression, my anxiety was really bad. And I just literally couldn't get out of bed some days. It was really bad. And then I saw, what's it? My partner was like, "Oh, why don't you try do some painting, or whatever again?" Because I've done little paintings and stuff with him before. And I was like, "Yeah, but I haven't got the materials. I can't afford to get the materials. I've got no money." And I'm like, "I feel bad because you're paying for everything." And he was like, "No, no, no. If you need something to do, you need something to do." So he ordered me some like paints sort of cheap off Amazon and so on. We found like a canvas or whatever that he had in his loft that wasn't going to use. It was like one of those, those mass produced canvases that you see in the shops, just one of those. And I was like, okay, this will be my project for the next 3 days or something. So I sanded that down and I just got to work and it completely sapped me out of it. It was like this wonderful like cure to everything for me at the time as I was doing it because I actually had a purpose to get up out of bed and do something. And I created my first piece that was in the style that's behind me. And I was just like, I've never done anything so freeing before. Like I never allowed myself to do a painting that was so free and just allowed to flow. Like if I painted something before, it was of a landscape or it was of something or of a person. It was never just as what I thought mess at the time because I was like trying to just like compute everything and just get it all out there. And I hated it. I hated that painting after I did it because I was just like, I've wasted all this paint. What was the point? Like I despised it. And my partner was like, I really love it. I was like, I think you really got something. I was like, no, no, it's rubbish. I'm sorry that I wasted all your money. Like, I'll do something better next time. Like I really, it was one of them. And as time went on, lockdown got worse for us where we were in Manchester. So we actually were living next to someone that was having illegal raves at the time. Can you like there was quite a lot of stuff going off? Can you remember when it was like all these people would still throw these parties and so on, and all
Yeah,
sorts of police?
like okay, because I used to live in. I just want to like map it out because I guess it
Oh,
doesn't
go
matter.
on.
It doesn't matter now, does it?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah,
no one's living. Yeah, okay, cool. So I lived. Do you know? Not Cheetham Hill, but like before that, you've got
yeah.
the McDonald's.
Yep.
Before that, you've got like a little
Yep.
park.
Yep.
So
Used to go
there's.
to that park for my daily walk.
I used to go to that park. I might have walked past you. You never know. How weird is that? But yeah, I regularly used to go. You remember there was Kersal Wetlands? Remember that?
Hmm.
I used to go
Yeah.
there a lot, walk a lot. Love that
Yeah.
little mini forest there. But yeah,
Yeah.
that area is where I lived.
Okay. Yeah. But the area that we were at, it was like the new residential area, I want to say.
Mm,
Um there was like the houses were relatively new, probably like in the last 5 years or so.
okay.
Um
But it was
but
like within 5 minutes of that.
yeah, 5 minutes of
Yeah,
that.
because I do
Um
remember some crazy shit going on around that time.
Yeah, our house nearly got broken into during that time as well. Luckily, it's all alarmed. I mean, Salford isn't Salford like the number one like house burglary like things in like the whole of Europe or something like that. I read.
Jesus, I guess burgled
Um,
the most,
yeah,
and I
like
chose to move there. I must be a fucking idiot.
yeah, but that's what I read anyway. Whether
I
it's still
literally
true
lived in
now,
a house in Salford during COVID.
and
Like, oh
yeah.
my god.
But yeah, so our house nearly got burgled into, and then our next door neighbor, they were a dealer, and it got more and more like tense situation essentially, and I just got to the point where I was like, I feel so unsafe, like I didn't want to go out the house anymore. And my partner, because he was working from home, he was like, yeah, we could do like a bigger space and so on and everything. And so we ended up moving in with his mum and dad in Shropshire, which is where I'm at now. So we moved to Shropshire. It's only a couple of hours away. Lovely. Like if any, and no one knows where it is, I just say next to Wales. That's so much simpler. Um, and we lived with his parents for like 10 months, and that helped me a lot because I had people around me, and that's what I needed. And they had a dog, so I was able to have an excuse to go out to take that for a walk. And I was just like, yeah, great. And I was able to like feel more comfortable. I was starting to do more crafty things again and more art things again slowly as I built my confidence up and my mental stability up again. And we then found a house in Shropshire that we really liked, bought it, and then he's been working from home ever since. He still has to go to Manchester every now and then for the office and so on, which is a bit annoying, but gives us an excuse to still come back, I guess.
There you go.
But if it wasn't for that first painting that I did, I was like I was at the lowest of the lows that I've ever been in my life. Like
How
it's yeah.
how exactly did it kind of? I guess what I want to establish is the link
Mm.
with art and mental health. That's really what I'd like to establish. So, like, how exactly did it help with your mental health?
With my mental health. So it established routine for me, which is like a big thing. Without any form of routine, like my experience, I struggle. Um, but it also gave me something that I could physically work on, like and like put my energy out, like an output. That's what I needed. For me in the past, I've tried counseling for therapies before. I've tried all sorts of different like CBT, etc., all those different kinds of things. And time again, I always struggled because you're either sat in front of a person or you're on the phone with a person. And unless you find the right fit the first time round, you always I feel in my experience was I was always going to struggle with that kind of interaction. Whereas having that, it was able to let me basically like spew out all this emotion that I had all like inside and put it out onto something and then allow me to process it after rather than it be so confrontational. So art therapy is a huge thing. Like it's something that's desperately needed currently in the UK, as well as everywhere else. And it's not just like art, it's not just art therapy. There's also music therapy. There's also drama therapy. There's also dance therapy. These are all therapies that have been created, that have been finessed and made more mainstream, if as you will, because there is a direct link to creativity, like improving mental health. The idea with art therapy is you still have that interaction of like the client and the therapist, but you use art as like the form in the middle, so it creates this triangle. So you create the artwork, and in a way it's used as a communication tool to kind of help bridge that gap. So it's great for those that struggle with articulating and processing. It's great for those that have specific mental or physical needs as well that may not be able to process it in a typical standard way. It's a lot more open and accessible. And I didn't realize the power it had until I needed it myself. And I got into it. It's something that I've been studying greatly on. Hopefully, as I say, be the qualified therapist soon. But I've seen from my experience of using art with kids that are in situations how much it's improved their day to day. Like I've been in, so my previous past roles, like I've been like learning support assistants in like specialist schools and things like that. And there was this one kid that I used to work with who had quite a lot of what would be deemed as behavioural needs. I put that in quotation marks because yes, there is kids out there that are shits. Don't get me wrong, but there are kids that react that way because there's actually something else going on, but no one can figure it out, or they can't figure it out themselves because they're still developing. Because they're a child. But this child in particular, I was in a school where they practice restraint for safety. He was a kid that was typically restrained every single day. And I got to work with him, and I actually did a thing where we had a sketchbook together. And I would draw he would like ask me to draw different things from video games and stuff he would like, but then I would like teach him how to do these things. And the more and more he like enveloped himself and allowed himself to express himself that way, the less the restraints became, and actually he was interacting more with his fellow peers, and it actually helped and like source some things out. Lots of different ways it can be used, and it doesn't have to be like typical ways either. Like I used to like have the kids draw on windows and all sorts of stuff, like use lots of different ways to like get their feelings out there. Like I've seen some kids in some really vulnerable situations, and it's amazing how something as simple, like something like creativity, can just like help a lot with that. And I think people, I don't think they give it as the credit that it's due in a way. They see it as it's not a real form of like therapy, so to speak. But it is. It's there for a reason. It's there for those that don't actually know the words to how to express it. And I think for me, when I was in that pit, going back to then, I didn't know how to express how I was because I felt as low as I ever been. Like it was new territory for me. So having something like that actually helped me put the pieces together like a jigsaw puzzle kind of thing and figure it out. But it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I've always looked at like art and creativity as being like a form of therapy, and I know some people are like, oh, you should just go get therapy, and it's like, well, everyone deals with things in different ways. I think for me, I've always kind of like just buried my head in creativity, and that helps me personally. That's helped me to just capture the emotion in a positive way and use it in some shape or form.
Exactly. And the thing is, therapy is not one size fits all. Like, there's lots of different things out there. There's even scuba diving therapy things as well. Believe it or not. The only reason I know is because I'm a qualified scuba diver. Little random tidbit. But yeah, like there's like even retreats for scuba diving because when you're doing scuba diving, you've got to focus on your breathing underwater, how much air you're intaking, and it actually gets you to slow down and just focus on what's around you. And it's a very meditative state in a way. And it's also great for your mental health, believe it or not, even though there's quite a lot of risk factors. So something else there, if you ever fancy it.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Right.
But go on.
This is not so much a question. It's more of a... Okay. First of all, shout out to Vilma. Big friend of mine, follower of the show for many years, always helps out, always sends in great questions, always very locked in. So Vilma said, I have seen some of Gemma's TikTok videos and I'm really interested to hear about her struggles with endometriosis and PCOS, as well as female healthcare in the UK. as I hear some appalling stories about female healthcare there, and I see so many women having to struggle for years and years with conditions that could perhaps be resolved quite easily here in a couple of months, or maybe even after doing one specific procedure. She lives in Greece.
Yeah.
P.S. Our healthcare system here is quite crap, but it never takes so long, and we have the option to go to a private gynecologist if we choose to, and that's very affordable. Procedures might be costly, but many people here opt to have extra private insurance coverage too. Also, we have a program running at the moment here for free pap smear testing and breast screening, and I'd like to know if this also applies to the UK.
Oh, so yeah, made it was literally a rant video on TikTok, and it was that stupid Muppet meme. I don't know if you've seen it. What's his name? The one with the wiry
Elmo,
red.
or, is it
No,
Elmo?
no, the Muppet. He's like the tiny prawn guy or something. He's like a little prawn guy thing.
Oh,
But there's this like trend on TikTok where you just literally put his picture up for a few things and you rant about whatever's been going off, like you whatever experience.
oh
So I
yeah, I
just
remember this. I remember this. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I was like, you know what? I can't make anything at the minute because I've been in and out of hospital for the past 3 months. Fuck it. So I just went on a huge rant. And that was the one TikTok that I've ever made, which I'm pissed off at. I'll be completely honest. That's the one that took off out of all the videos I've ever made. So I think it's like nearly 70K views or something like that. Which I was like, yay for me, but also, oh, I wish it was for painting, but never mind. But a lot of women responded to that and their experience, which is what I wasn't expecting. And I was quite touched, to be fair. But so my experience going back a few years, so I was diagnosed with endometriosis back in 2022. It took me many years to get doctors to actually take me seriously.
Can I just
Um,
ask what for those who don't know what is endometriosis?
Basically, it is tissue that is typically growing within your like uterus and so on is actually found places where it shouldn't be. So outside your uterus or anywhere else in your body. Like there's been cases where it's been grown on people's lungs and things like that. It's like really bad. Um, I've always had it's going to get TMI. Apologies,
Fine.
but I always had trouble with like my menstrual cycles. It was more painful than what I thought was typical period pain. The amount of times I went to the doctors and they were like, oh, I'll just stick you on the pill. And I was on the pill for like 10 years and like still made no difference. Always clutching to something warm. I was in agony. There'd be days where I couldn't go into work because I was just in that much pain, like physically curled up in a ball. But I was told it was normal, that I was over exaggerating. It didn't get to the point until I got rushed into hospital. So I rang 111 saying that I physically couldn't move. I had severe pain in my lower right and I was really struggling, to which they thought appendicitis because it was on that side. So they then got me to go to what we call our shop docs here, who give you an overview before they send you to the surgical assessment team. They had looked at me and they were like, yeah, it looks like appendicitis. And I was panicking at this point. It was like 1 a.m. in the morning. They then sent me to the surgical assessment unit. I had bloods and so on taken. And they were like, so at the minute, I can see there's inflammation in your bloods and so on. We can't really do much more right now until we get you in for an ultrasound to see what's going on. But so you're going to have to wait till the Monday. So I had to wait a whole weekend while I was in this pain. They gave me a bunch of codeine to take, more than I should have taken, but they gave me all of it. And I was just like comatose for the weekend. Went for the ultrasound, and not only did I have an ovarian cyst that was 6 centimeters big, so about that big, that had burst inside me in my in my fallopian tube. But there was also some irregularities they could see on the ultrasound as well, and they wanted to get me for a CT. They did CT, and from what they could see, my bladder was actually fused to my uterus with endometriosis tissue, which I was told was stage 4 endometriosis. So I had to have laparoscopic surgery, had to have keyhole surgery to unfuse my bladder from my uterus. And that was my official, here's your sticker, you've got endometriosis since then. It's at this moment uncurable. There's no treatment plan for endometriosis in the UK whatsoever. I've seen cases where people have got it a lot worse than mine, where they've even resorted to having to have a colostomy bag and things like that because of how bad their endometriosis has been. And it's one of the top 10 most painful conditions there is. Like, it's horrible. I have good days where I can move about, like, Christ, I go scuba diving, I do hiking, I do all sorts of stuff, and then there'll be days where I physically am crippled in pain and can't move and do anything. Since I've had that surgery, I would like to say it's gotten better, but if anything, I'm more aware of my body now and I can feel some more discomforts and stuff. Um, I actually then had to have a review surgery again to remove more tissue that had grown since that procedure, because one of the wonderful things endometriosis can do is it can just grow, keep growing and keep growing more. The case with mine is with stress induced. Mine is stress induced partly. So if I get under severe stress conditions, my body may grow more tissue. It's this wonderful chronic illness that's not been deemed a chronic illness in a way by like the official authorities, but it is, and it should be treated as so. But by the government standard, like, it's not something that I would be able to claim disability for example. No woman would. It's not something I'd be able to claim PIP for. None of that. That's not something that's currently. You can try, and I have been trying, but it's not. It's like
It's like
very
chronic
minute.
pain though. Like you can't do
Yeah,
anything.
exactly. Like, I am like to, because the thing is, if they were to see me in a disability assessment and I was having a good day, I'm a normal functioning person, and you
Yeah.
know what? For the most part, I am. But that's not what I'm like 100% of the time. People have, we have flare ups, we have like bad days, just like everybody does, you know, and anything can trigger it. Like, there's, or sometimes nothing at all. It can just happen because why not? Your body decides to. It's one of those things you're constantly fighting against your body. And they recommend all sorts of things. Main one being contraceptives. Oh, get an implant, get a coil, go on the pill, it'll make it easier. But sometimes that actually doesn't help. In my case, it hasn't helped. And the amount of times that I've had to repeat my medical history to somebody and go, "No, you're wrong," is ridiculous. My recent bout, however, which is going on the PCOS, so polycystic ovarian syndrome, another women healthcare thing. Basically, ovarian cysts. I've had the huge one before, which then discovered the endometriosis tissue. But basically, you produce an abnormal amount. They may come out abnormal. They may keep bursting. May grow to like, there's some that I've had like huge ones that have been physically in there and removed, like their bellies physically are ballooned out from cysts and so on. At the beginning of this year, so prior to this, I was in a full-time job in SEND education. I was a student recruitment officer. Absolutely loved it. Very taxing, doing whatever. I got cold and flu, and then I had this pain in my lower right again. And I was like, okay, great. Been here before, know what's going to happen. Went through the process again, got sent to the surgical assessment unit. The doctor that saw me, he said after I had bloods done, so on, it was 4 a.m. at this point. I'd been waiting in surgical assessment unit for 8 hours. He said to me, "So your bloods came back normal. This came back normal. I just think it's constipation." And I was just like, "No, it's not constipation. I know my body. Have you read my record? If you so, you would know that I have this condition. There needs to be further investigation." And he refused. He refused to give me further healthcare, refused to give me pain relief. He at one point suggested kidney stones and then said I could go for a CT, but then said I wasn't eligible to have a CT due to certain requisites that you need to do for a CT scan. And just sent me on my way with no help whatsoever. I felt so demoralised. I felt so unheard. I even asked for a second opinion as well at that visit, but nothing came to fruition. 3 days later, I went to my GP because I was still in pain. She looked over me. She was like, "Yeah, you still got this pain. You're still in agony and so on. I'm sending you back to surgical assessment unit." So this is round 2. Okay. This is round 2. So I go back, take my bloods and so on again. I've had my bloods taken God knows how much these past few months. Can't find anything wrong with you, but you still got this pain. tried just taking normal painkillers. I was like, normal painkillers don't touch me. If you read my record and you've seen that I've got endometriosis, you know I've said many times in doctor's appointments that although yes I could try ibuprofen or paracetamol, it doesn't work with the endo pain. So why would it work for this pain that I've got now? They said we'll refer you for an ultrasound though, because if you think it's a cyst, then we'll need an ultrasound just to confirm that. I was like, okay, great. When can you get me in? Oh, it could take 6 to 8 weeks. I was like, right, okay. Sent me home with no pain relief. And I was just like, okay, what do I do? Because I can't wait 6 to 8 weeks. Like, I'm in so much pain. It got to like 5 days later. During this time, I've hardly slept. I can't physically lie down on the bed because the pain's that severe. Can't even like properly wash myself because I can't physically bend my back or anything. Like, it was awful. I had no quality of life. I went to a private doctor this time, the third time. I am fortunate that I have got insurance through my partner's work. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have got the answers. So went to the private doctor, told him my whole situation. He literally took one look at me and said that I was a failed discharge. I should have never been discharged from the hospital in the first place, and sent me back to a surgical assessment unit because I needed immediate attention and to have a CT scan. So
this is pissing me off, and I wasn't even there.
It is. Oh, don't, because I gave up at this point. I was just like, right, whatever, just do whatever. I've had enough. So third time, yeah. Go in, do my bloods and everything again, yeah. I'm like, yeah. I'm pointing to the veins. I'm like, please make sure you use these ones. Like, I know the routine. Come on. Went for the CT scan, and they went, okay, so we can see there's like a 4 centimeter cyst there. But you've got an ultrasound on Monday, so that'll get a closer look at it. And I was like, okay, I was told 6 to 8 weeks. Oh no, you've got an appointment on Monday. Okay, great. Would have been great if somebody told me that and put it in a letter. Oh, you should have the letter with you in 2 days. Oh, right, thanks. That's like very short notice, but also thanks. The woman then says, so I want to send you home until you ultrasound. And I was like, no, I put my foot down. I was like, you are not sending me home without pain relief. I can't do this again. I need you to sort something. She was like, okay, I'll go talk to my boss. Went to talk to my boss, came out, oh, I can prescribe you this painkiller. I didn't realise that you can use these painkillers for gynecological issues. And I was like, this is coming from a doctor that's telling me this. And you didn't know that you could prescribe me this painkiller. I was like fuming at this point. I was just like, look, I appreciate how stressed the NHS are. Like, it is a diabolical issue and so on in the UK right now. But at the same time, I've got no quality of life. No one's been listening to me. I've been going through this for so long and nothing's happening. That's just the first stage of what's been happening in the first 3 months. Okay. Had the ultrasound. They say it looks like a cluster of cysts, not actually just one cyst. And that I was told wrong by the CT people, that it was just the one. So that's another heartbreak. And they then said, oh, they're going to refer me to gynecology. And I went, okay, so what is that for urgent? And he went, yes, it's for urgent. I was like, okay, how long is that going to take? Well, with the current rate of the waiting list at the minute for gynecological issues, there are 600,000 women in the UK that are waiting for urgent care for gynecological issues right now. So that waiting list could take anywhere from 11 months to a year.
Jesus Christ.
It's a huge epidemic here, women's healthcare in the UK. Like, it's really bad. And I was like, okay, great. And he was like, in the meantime, all I can suggest is keep taking this painkiller that they're giving you because they prescribed it me for the whole month. Try and make comfort adjustments where you can, and so on.
What does that mean? Comfort? If you're in chronic pain all the time and the painkillers aren't enough, what the fuck comfort adjustments could you make?
Yeah, and I was just like, right, okay. So I let a couple of weeks pass at this point. I was just trying to focus on not being in pain and just basically just trying to sleep because I was running on no sleep at this point. I thought, you know what, I'm going to try the private doctor again because I've had enough. At this point, I've had to give up my job because I wasn't able to give them concise answers because the doctors weren't able to give me concise answers. And it got to a point where I was basically jeopardizing my job with the issues that I was going through. With the job that I was working in, the time frame that this had all happened is the worst time for it to have happened because this is like the most crucial point for that kind of job role in SEND education in general. And I was just like, it's not fair for them to keep waiting on me is how I justified it in my head with everything that's happening, because they need someone now, and like, I'm not, there's nobody there doing my job. And with the pressures that I had from work as well that was coming on, I was like, I've got to give up something. And I had to give that up, which I was very, very upset about. Went to the private doctor again. This was a gynecological specialist. He went through everything with me. He did like swab tests and so on and everything, and all of that. And he was saying to me, I want to get you in for another CT that's actually focused on the area. I want to get all these samples that I've took from you that you haven't had done previously sent off, get some more blood work done, and just basically have a more thorough look at everything to see what's happening. And I was like, okay, this guy makes sense. I understand why he wants to do all this. Yes, it's costing money, but at this point, I'll give anything a try. Yeah. So I get the CT scan within a week and so on, as well as all these tests and so on come back. Within that appointment, within 2 weeks, I found out what was wrong with me, which he said to me, so basically, you are in the qualifying criteria for polycystic ovarian syndrome. Having done all these scans and these tests and so on, we can see that, yes, you've got all these ovarian cysts, but the thing that's causing you so much pain is actually you've got an infected ovarian cyst. So I've got a cyst that is abnormal, but it's also infected. And that's what was causing so much severe pain. If I had waited a year, that infection could have spread a lot more worse. It could have developed into sepsis. Like, it would have been really bad for me if it just left there to rot, essentially. I could have lost a fallopian tube. I could have, all sorts could have happened, he was saying to me. So he's giving me all this, I've got chucked on all these horrible antibiotics and all sorts of stuff to simply drain the infection away. Very gross, but and it's luckily worked, but it took me 3 months to find that out. I wouldn't have found that out through the NHS until I got referred to the urgent gynecological appointment, which the waiting list for it is abhorrent. Because I was lucky enough to access private, I was able to find out, actually, this is what was wrong with me. And actually, I do now qualify for polycystic ovarian syndrome and everything as well, to say that I have that. So in terms of like what Velma was saying, in terms of the healthcare here, it's atrocious in terms of women's healthcare. Absolutely atrocious. I don't think it's given as much credit as credit's due as to how severe these issues are. And the thing is, it's absolutely appalling because there's such a stereotype with, oh, well, it's just this kind of pain, oh, it's so hard. And it's like, yeah, but if you experience this pain, would you say it's typical? Like, at the end of the day, like, there's a big thing coming out recently with the doctors in the NHS and so on now, that they're scared, essentially. And I understand why, because more people are shouting out and trying to get their voices heard as to what's actually wrong with them. But the thing is, there's a reason, because they're not well. Like, I was one of them. Like, I've got an official complaint through and everything because of the service I got. Because with what the private doctor said to me, if they had done that one swab test in the beginning, they could have picked up on the infection, like, within 3 days.
I was gonna say, like, I was thinking of asking this question, like, did you consider like suing them at any point? Because this is just like ridiculous.
Yeah, I've been looking into some things, but it's very difficult.
Yeah,
and I've got family that work in the healthcare profession and so on, so I do know what it's like behind the scenes. But there's the people that actually care, that are in those job roles, like, they actually go to the efforts. Unfortunately, I got stuck with people that I felt like didn't. And I got that strong sense of that from the interactions that I had and I recorded as well, because it's sad reality, but any kind of hospital visit, doctor's visit or so on, when I'm going in about these women healthcare issues, I feel I have to keep some kind of like journal of what actually happens in case something happens. So then I can go, well, actually that wasn't said, and I've got this record here. And the fact that I have to go to such lengths to make sure that actually, no, this is what's happening and you need to sort it out. And this was said, but obviously it wasn't raised or put in my medical records. That's so worrying. And because people are cutting corners, but it's because there's lack of resources and there's so overwhelmed. Like, the hospital that I went to I think it's one of the worst rated, unfortunately. But it shouldn't be like that. And I just think to myself, I wasn't in as bad of a situation as I could have been. If I was a lot worse, what would have happened? Like, could that have crippled me even more? Could it have impacted my life in a more severe way or permanent way? Like, there's no way to know. And the fact that, I was able to luckily get the private healthcare, that's great. My private healthcare, though, it only covers I think it's £1,500 a year. That instantly goes. So, for example, the first consultation appointment I had with the first private doctor, that cost £120. So I had to pay the £100 excess up front. £20 got took off that 1,500. Since on that, I've had 2 more appointments added to that cost, plus a CT scan, plus all these tests. So I've probably got no health insurance until it renews for the year now. And it's so expensive. You don't realize how expensive healthcare is. And it's because we've essentially have outsourced some of it, which doesn't help. And, everywhere's, populations are growing, demands more. It's a very stressful time. I used to work within education at one point at the university with nursing students and with those that were trained to be social workers and paramedics and so on. So I'm more clued up on what goes on behind the scenes and actually what's happening. But it shouldn't have gotten to the point that it did. That's the main thing. It shouldn't have got to the point where I had to feel like I had to give up my job. And it shouldn't have got to the point where literally I'm now currently jobless. I'm trying to, find something to make ends meet at the minute. And, it's caused a lot of problems, really. I've suspected the polycystic ovarian thing for a while because I actually suffer with alopecia, which is one of the main things that comes with it. So I don't have lovely, long, beautiful hair like yours. Used to. My hair used to be down to my waist, not anymore. Can't grow that far out anymore. But yeah, it does take a huge whack on your mental health. It's a huge issue. And it just gets fobbed off, point blank. That's what it feels like here. So I've seen other places in Europe and so on, and I'm like, yeah, they've got it a lot better in a way.
I will say, through conversations with my girlfriend, conversations with other women, other friends of mine, this sounds all too familiar. There's a lot of it. There's a lot of this gaslighting kind of you don't know what you're talking about, blah blah blah. I'm the doctor, and it's yeah, but
Yeah.
your body, reactions to things, and I don't want to make it a gender thing, but you mentioned you had a male doctor and that was his response. That's a thing. I don't know. I'd be hey, give me the female doctor. Maybe she'll be a bit more fucking sympathetic to this because, I'm in chronic pain and I know you don't have a uterus, but I do. And this is what the fuck's going on, man.
Yeah. I'd say there was definitely some element of that, but the 2 private doctors that I saw were both male.
And so that's why I think it probably is just a type of person. I mean, also, my girlfriend's given examples of female doctors that have had the same attitude, to be fair. So
yeah. I mean, the first guy, it was 4 a.m. I looked at him, and when you look at someone they're so visibly tired, you can see the bags under their eyes. He was absolutely shattered. He wasn't really focused on properly talking to me. And some of the things he said, he was like, "Oh, can you get off the bed, please, because that's for patients." Little comments like that. And I could tell it was part of, he doesn't believe the pain, but also he just wants to get rid of me because it's 4 a.m. and he's tired and I'm the last person that's left here because there's nobody else left in the surgical assessment unit. And I was like,
that's still fucking rude though. How dare you?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Until he's basically saying you're a liar.
Essentially. And I felt, and that you then feel it's imposter syndrome, isn't it? That then comes into play. And I was just like, oh, maybe I'm playing it more to what it is, or it'll die down in a few days. It didn't. No, it didn't. 3 months later, I only just got it solved now. But it's absolutely atrocious, absolutely atrocious. And the thing is, because the issue has been basically pushed away, I've seen a lot of rising of women talking about it now
Mm.
and so on. Like there was that one podcast with that guy saying that it was all fake or whatever, and that peed me off too. Oh, I was so furious. I was like, really? Okay, well, how about the balding? How about the pain? How about, when I'm physically bloated from endo pain and so on and everything, me having to gravitate to whatever's like the nearest hot water bottle. Like I've got hot water bottles around the house to cling on to if I need it, Like this isn't what I want to live with. Like I was using a walking stick at one point because I physically couldn't walk for too long without being in too much pain because the flare-ups would be that bad. Like, and it's crap because like I want to be able to make plans and do all these things and so on, but I can't predict when that's going to happen to me. I can't predict my body's going to go, you know what? No, I've had enough. I'm going to make you suffer a little bit. Like you're just at war against yourself. And you're less reluctant to want to do things and get out there and so on. And like I was physically told by the private doctor, I actually need to consider changing job role to something part-time because physically I can't stand it anymore. And to be told that before I turned 30, I was like, you're talking to me as if I'm like a pensioner. I'm not. Like, I was like, but I'm not even like halfway through my life and you're telling me I need to find something that's less stressful already. Like, it's ridiculous. And it does need to be talked about and needs to be an issue. There's a charity in the UK, Endometriosis UK. One of the genius things that they've done is they've got a like little quiz thing that you can take to like say what your symptoms are and so on. And they'll put that in a formal letter for you to download and print and give to your doctor to try and start the process of getting that diagnosis of endometriosis. So you've got some kind of formal letter like give them rather than just I've been feeling like this or whatever, and then that being not noted down properly, like actually putting physical evidence there. That's something I would say would be a great resource. That wasn't around when I got my endometriosis diagnosis that I was aware of because mine was different story to everybody else's journey typically. For me, it took for something really severe to happen to actually get an answer. And it's sad in a way that something like that has to happen to get that answer.
And again, I've heard that same story from so many women, and I'm like, what the fuck is this, man? What are we doing? We need to change this now.
Yeah, exactly. And so all my artwork that I've been making recently, because I've been off for the past 3 months, what I've been able to make, like I've done stuff that's been focusing on my body. Like I've got I'm currently working on something at the minute that's hidden away, where I've gathered all of the like letters, discharge letters, like all sorts that I've had in the past 3 months. And I've like created it all together in a tapestry that I'm going to put on a canvas and stuff to kind of show this is how big the past 3 months have been. This is just 3 months just to show you physically, like in like document format and so on. It's something that I didn't think I was going to take a turn with. Like I'm obviously changing for what I typically do, which is just the painting stuff. But obviously with recent things that I've been going through, I feel like that's the only way I've been able to process it. Like using what I've got because I haven't got much at the minute. So, but
thank you so much for sharing, man.
No, it's fine.
All I can say is like I'm sorry you had to go through that, and also just props to you for hanging in there. You know what I mean? Like it's fucking tough, especially when people are treating you that way when you really need empathy. And I think
and it was quite funny because one of my friends, they suffer with a disability. And we were like comparing notes. And I was just like, is it bad that I have these feelings and so on? Because to me, I don't feel validated that what I'm going through is as severe as what you're going through with your disability. And he was like, I can completely understand it, but your pain's valid. Your experience is valid. You are justified to feel like it's like the same situation as similar to mine. And for him to tell me that, I was like, oh yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, I need to just accept it and actually, own it kind of way. And since I've like had a bit of a talking to by him, like sometimes you need that friend in your ear, don't you?
mm-hmm.
I was actually gone, you know what? Yeah, I need to own it and take ownership of that now and actually, not take a stand in a way, for not for anyone else really. I can do that, but mainly for myself. That's like number one. And like, I didn't realize how much the issue was actually affecting me until I got flowers sent to me by my mom, and I got flowers sent to me by my best friend saying get well soon and stuff like that. And it was something so sweet, but yeah, I broke down crying because I was like, the card says get well soon, but I'm not going to get well soon. Like, this is something I've got to live with. And like, I was like, I know they didn't mean it to come off as insensitive or anything like that. It's just a gesture of goodwill. But then I was like, this is actually getting to me more than I thought it was going to. And it was just like harsh hit of reality. It's quite insane. But my advice to anyone that is going through the same thing, for me, I've been persistent since day one. I've kept a journal of everything that's happened and trackers of everything that's happened to me and so on, to show that I can prove to them that actually there is a pattern of these like issues that are happening to me. Kept great detail of what my parents look like and how they present themselves. I've kept a track of all my medical records. I even made requests to the like GP for all my medical records as well, so that I could physically see what they were writing in the notes about me. So then I could see what they were contended against. Obviously, if you're able to use private, I'd say go down that route. For me, if I didn't go down that route, I wouldn't have found out that actually, yes, I have the qualifying factors for polycystic ovarian syndrome, but also the reason why I was in so much pain was because I had that infection that if it was left for 11 months to a year, could have developed into sepsis or God knows what. If you've got that resource, use it. There's also the Endometriosis UK website. They're a great resource for help and advice, as well as I said, that letter. There's lots of support groups out there as well for women. Some of them maybe just as Facebook groups. Some of them actually are like charities and so on. There are resources out there. And there's some ways of there's like some brilliant ways of like how people have said how to phrase things when you're in your doctor's appointment. It's rubbish that that actually has to be a guide on how to phrase your doctor's appointments, like how to talk in a doctor's appointments. But there is guides out there of how to say things. Like some of the key phrases I used was, this is having a severe impact on my quality of life. Or one phrase I used was, I'm physically scared for my well-being and my health. I use phrases such as, this is what my body is typically like, however these are the abnormalities, that physically laying it black and white for them. And it's just ridiculous that you have to do that, but there are useful resources out there for that, for anyone that's in that kind of position. And there's lots of people out there on TikTok, whatever, that they're there. If I've had lots of lovely chats with people over the past few weeks, and it's quite in a way, it's great to hear other people's experience. Yes, they're horrible, but it's great because I feel like I'm not alone, and actually I'm not going crazy. But yeah, I would say that's what's try and create that support around you is the main one, though. So, yeah.
Thanks again for sharing. A couple of final questions for you.
There you go.
What has art taught you about life?
Trying to think. That's a good question. I like that one.
That's what I do.
It's taught me to adapt. So it's not going to go out how you think it's going to go. It's always going to turn out some way different to what you perceive. To trust in the process. These are all cliches. I do appreciate that, but to trust the process. And also, I've learned just to have fun with it. If you don't have fun with it, then what's the point? In my opinion. You got to have fun with it, and and I don't take myself seriously in a way with it or whatever. The main thing I do is, as long as I'm getting enjoyment out of it, getting some fun out of it, that's good. Whatever bonuses I get from it, that's great. That's the best way to treat it. All you can do is have a go. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. If it does, it does. Simple.
More. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice. if it feels right, just go for it. So there were times in my art career when I was like debating on certain decisions, like through my university degree and so on. But I just had that gut feeling that actually, no, I needed to do that. And if I hadn't, I wouldn't have progressed to the way I have and or grown either. Like doing those things, just trusting your gut, like it tells you more than you think it should. Even if you know the exact, oh, if I go down this path, I'll get this benefit, but if I go down this, I won't get this benefit. Even if you have to go down that road that doesn't look as appealing, but you trust in your gut, that's the best thing. 9 times out of 10, you're right. Like I've always gone on my gut feelings. It's been a good instinct for me, like going forward. So any decision that I've made with the stuff, if I feel like actually I just need to do this one bit, this one thing, it's worked itself out. So just go with your gut. Like that's the main thing.
What's the biggest life lesson you've learned so far?
Patience.
God damn right.
Yeah. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, patience. Like, God, have I got frustrated with myself over the years. But you know what? I need to be patient with myself. And you know what? Patience pays itself, genuinely. And I know, God, I would have kicked myself if someone said that to me, God knows how many years ago. But now I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad I take that advice and I just, yeah, you know what? Just let it take the time it needs to take to. Otherwise you'll rush it and it'll be a mess or whatever. So, yeah, I would, younger me would kick me for saying that.
As we draw things to a close today, do you have any upcoming projects or final thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
So I'll be featuring on Joe's Art History podcast soon, talking about Marcus Harvey.
Promoting other podcasts.
I know.
Sacrilege.
And I'm hoping to be releasing the stuff I've been creating these past 3 months soon as well. It's been a very slow process because I'm still recovering a little bit. I'm better now, but I'm like building my strength up again. But I'm hoping to release that soon. I was trying to get something done for International Women's Day, but I just couldn't get it done. I was like, because I was like, that would be a great day, but no, it's just one of those things.
It's always next year.
Yeah, always next year. But hope to release that soon. And yeah, I'm hoping to try and get more stuff out there in terms of like stuff to do with women's healthcare, I think, going forward, because having the outreach that I've had from other people and their experiences, I'll hope to do something like that in the future as well. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
It's okay.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Good.
I mean it, man. I mean it. Genuinely.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's been good to catch up.
Thank you so much.
Talk.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. And I think that our listeners will really get a lot from this. I've got quite a majority female audience, and I know that they'll get like a lot from this. Thank you for being part of the mental health week that I'm doing on the show.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks for reaching out. Just thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
It's okay. Anytime.
Absolutely. More than welcome back on the show in the future. Absolutely. To all the listeners of the Christian Reeve podcast, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. I hope you got something from this. I know I did. And thank you so much for watching, for listening. I'll see you in the next one.